All right, so I wanted to show you the progress and kind of give you the ideas of what we got going forward. So here's all the railing that's sanded. Now what I needed to do, I hit this with 60 grit. And if you look, it's a little rough and it has swirl marks. But I do that to try and get the bulk of it off the easiest. And then we've got all the edges here that I go over with hand paper. So like this is the top edge, I'm not worried about it. But like these right here. So what I normally would do is I would go over all that again in 100 grit. Not super fast. You're gonna get some swirl marks. I just want to make it look, I want to reduce the amount of visible swirl marks that you're gonna see. Here you can see I sanded this. I'm not gonna sand the underside of this unless you ask. I don't see a point in it. It's not really that big of a eyesore if we don't sand it. Now the posts are pretty easy except for around these screws. Let's see what we got back here. Now, a lot of these posts need to be tightened. I don't particularly feel like taking these bolts out. I can to sand it, and then I can put them back in and tighten them if that's something we want to do. I mean, it almost makes more sense to do that than to sand around it by hand. If I had my impact and I could just zip them on and off, that might be an option. But I don't want to have to worry about them going out of plumb. That's the only thing. So we've got that going on. Now you can see the difference between that and here. So what I've got left, and I did this in the coarse grit. What I'm going to try tomorrow, top cap and coarse grit, posts in my 100 grit. So I don't have to go back over them. I think that they'll strip just fine with the 100 grit. Whereas I think this top cap can use it. Now I've got to sink these screws where they're not going in. I've got to punch them or replace them. So we've got all this left to do with the sanding of the railing. So I figure I've got another to final sanding on the railing, probably another 2 days. Then we've got the deck. Now I haven't even really tried to see what an orbital on the deck would do. So let's just, while we're here real quick. Okay. So what I'm getting at there is I've got to call Sonora Rental. They have a floor sander that I can rent. That usually uses 36 grit. So you're looking at between the rental and the sandpaper. The sandpaper is where they get you probably about $400 to $500 in a rental. Plus I'm going to charge for my time to go down there, pick it up, drop it off. That should be included in that $400 to $500. For the rental, the sandpaper and everything, hopefully we come in a little under that. Then a full day of using that sander on here. Then usually what I do is there are going to be areas where that sander can't get to along the house. There's going to be edges that are uneven where it doesn't get to it. And then I usually go over the whole thing with an orbital real quick to try and take out the swirl marks. That's going to be up to you if you want to just leave it. That big floor sander can leave some pretty big swirl marks in certain areas. If we're not worried about that, cool. If you want to try the orbital, you know, that went easy. It's hard to gauge. I mean, I could probably spend 3 or 4 days sanding this with an orbital, and I'd probably have to buy another orbital. Because they'll smoke in this heat. I mean, it'll go out. I do have a backup one that I just bought just in case something goes out on this job. But anyway, that's where we're at. It's really hard for me to gauge when I get in the orbital. So anyway, you're looking at 2 more days of railing. Probably, if I rent that sander, 2 to 3 days of sanding on the deck boards, plus a day of setting all the screws, right? Then we probably have a day or 2 of sanding or of staining. Now, what my recommendation is going to be this. Stain runs for a 5-gallon bucket about $3.25, I believe. Maybe $3.50. $3.50 for a 5-gallon bucket. I believe you could do 2 coats on all this with about 7 gallons. I have a free gallon I'll donate. I think it's worth doing 2 coats to anything, to everything. In my opinion, you don't have to. And what they say is, don't put too much on. Because of how thirsty this wood is, I'm thinking it's just going to suck it in. In which case, if I can put on a coat, come back, put on another coat, you're going to be in better shape. Now, if you want to save the money on that, it's always best to do another coat right before winter. So we can always put on 1 coat now, see what it looks like, and come back. But I mean, because I'm sanding this with coarse grit, I can guarantee it's just going to suck that stuff right up. So I've got the sides of the posts. But I mean, if we go this route, and granted, there's going to be probably 4 hours of tightening and setting screws in here, because it's actually, what happens is when the wood expands and contracts, it'll pop the screws, and then you have to kind of dig them out, or you punch them in and say goodbye to them. But then they're no longer doing their job. So all this needs to get done. I'm thinking in the meantime, because I don't have a phone right now, I should get it tomorrow. I have the insurance claim. I'll try and get a hold of the rental company and see when that rental is available. And we'll go from there. But anyway, here's what we're moving towards. And then also with the color, I want to make sure now you have the option of any color you want. So if you want it darker, if you want it more golden, the world is your oyster now. And so semi-transparent cedar, a lot of people like for like